Okay, everybody. So we have the UFO disclosure files happening today. So I think from a Christian perspective, people have been following, the ideas of what Revelation and Daniel speak of, and the progression towards the end of this time. And I thought I'd lay it out. I mean, this is something I've written about some time ago already. I published a book, started writing about 2, 3 years ago called Demystifying-God, and it covers part of this in its topic as well. So people must be wondering what's going on. How does the whole alien agenda fit into everything that's happening in the world? And I just wanted to be clear. Um, there doesn't have to be aliens in order for there to be alien agenda. And if you're a Christian, you'll understand that there's three orders of being, at least in terms of intelligence. Obviously, there's God, and there's angels, and there's men. So I believe that it is these fallen angels that are coming into play, and it's part of a grand narrative which has been played out for a very long time. So what we're seeing is a creation of left and right, and people have been divided across every line for a very long time now. But as we reach the end of this, it's been ramped up to such a degree that there is no discussion, and it appears that the terrible woke left is the enemy, and the only option then to side with is the right in order to overthrow that system. But when we look at the right, we see they're doing equally wicked things. So I think there's a verse that I repeatedly use, and it's 2 Corinthians 4. I think it says, "Although we live in the world, we do not wage wars. The world wages war." So then ask yourself the question: how does the world wage war? Through battles and violence and political rhetoric and manipulation and laws. And then it says, we don't use weapons of this world. So we've got tanks, guns, knives, the typical things that people use in a physical war. So by contrast, it's a spiritual war that we're fighting against. And then it goes on to say that what we do is actually demolish strongholds. And then it tells you what those strongholds are. And these are pretensions. And what are pretensions? They are lies that pretend to be truth. And it says, and also arguments that set themselves up against coming to know who God truly is. And if you think about it, like straightforward, Satan is a liar. The problem is not about power. So when Satan came into his powers of deceit and trickery and falling into pride and deception, there were accusations against God. So if God had to kill the devil, then it would actually prove him right, like worship me or die. So we have this whole conundrum that is set up as how does God then deal with us? And frameworking that verse that I've just quoted, it is the type of victory that happens only in a court case. If you take a court case and you have an accused and an accuser, and you put a knife in each one of their hands and say, okay, there's the flag, go. Whoever kills the other first is the winner. That's not how a court case works. That's how the world wages war. And we do not wage war. We're battling against arguments and ideologies, subversions, pretensions that set themselves up against the knowledge of God. So this is what the spiritual battle is. And Jesus demonstrated that you cannot throw systems of power and fear and force over with more power and fear and force. You have to win like in a court case. You present evidence and you let the evidence speak for itself, and the victory happens in the hearts and the minds of people. And there's those that love what is good, and even though they're faulty, they really admire it and they hate what is bad. And then there's those that actually love what is bad and get uh, gains and victories through ill methods, serving themselves. So there's those two sides of things. Now, taking this into account and seeing the wars that are happening in the world today, this is the progression I see. I have been 100% right in terms of predicting it as it's happening now currently. I had forecasted the COVID pandemic. In 2010, we were already speaking to people about what was coming. So we just followed the signs. I have no secret ability and have no secret download of knowledge, but just through research and looking at the patterns and weighing up evidence over time, you build up a enough of a catalog, if you wish, that starts connecting all the dots together. It's like finishing the puzzle when at first it looks a little bit shady and you can't figure out what it's all about. As you go further and further in, it becomes quicker and quicker to fill the gap and show the final picture. So this is how it plays out as we see. The third world, this final uh, conflagration is all an evidence that human beings are not able to govern to goodness. It's impossible through fear, force, and coercion, legal constructs. Doesn't matter what the system, because wicked people will always gravitate to the positions of power. They love power because they can manipulate it to serve themselves. And righteous people, they don't lie and steal and use unfair methods in order to gain those positions, so they seldom rise up to the top in those. And when they do, they're normally sorted out or ended in various different kinds of ways, either physically or otherwise. So it's stacked against that type of system. So what we have now is this final progression. You have Satan, the puppet master, and he has basically subverted everything. He creates false images of left and right that force you to choose between two things that are wrong. And right towards the end, it obviously gets very bad because the left hate the right hate the left. They don't want to speak to each other, but there's now thousands of divisions along that line as well. So in this last phase, it's you got a picture. It's like a wicked magician, and he's got a blue hand on his left and a red hand on his right, and he uses prestidigitation, which is using sleight of hand to deceive people. Like look at the left hand while the right manifests this thing, or similar to a puppet show. So we're all sitting focused on the hand socks or the puppets on the strings, thinking that that is reality. Meanwhile, it is orchestrated like a play, and there's a puppeteer that controls those things. I'll give you one example as an analogy. Picture a beautiful land that has all sorts of wealth and beauty, and they have good morals and right ways, and the king passes away and he leaves his two children with this beautiful country. They have a neighboring country which is a lifelong enemy, generationally, for thousands of years, but they are so diabolical and different that they know if they take the place by force, they're outnumbered and the people will rise up. So they use tricks like subversion. So that enemy would then perhaps go to one brother or find a way to infiltrate him and insist or insinuate that his other brother is planning to overthrow him and plotting to kill him. So you create distrust in the relationship where the two brothers were loving and had no problems. Now distrust comes in, and you can feel and see both sides to the point where they are at war. So, question is, where's the real battle taking place? Where's the real war? There's a mystical spiritual war, something that does not actually exist if it weren't for the manipulation of the great enemy is this battle between the two brothers. The war is actually between the other state, the other enemy, the grand enemy, and these people. So this is how you view the countries and the systems and organizations in the world today. They are just puppets, scripted characters in a play that are playing their role in the part of it. And all of this is done in order to bring the world to ashes, morally, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and economically. So you've heard about the Great Reset. It's very similar to that. So what happens is this war in the Middle East, for example, is meant to be fought to complete and total and utter exhaustion on those fronts: mentally, morally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and economically, to the point of exhaustion. And what this does then is it leaves Islam rudderless and Judaism rudderless, and then the false Christian religion that's attached to Zionist Israel also rudderless, because all these things are just resulting in pain and suffering. And each one of them have a Messiah that they claim will come out of this very war. So Islam has their Messiah, the Mahdi, and then you have the war of Gog and Magog and the rise of the Jewish Messiah, Mashiach. And then you have Christian Zionist, Christian, the one that will, the Christ that will come and rule over the world for 1,000 years. So these are false Christs. We know that because it says when Christ finally comes in the end, we'll be taken up into the clouds to meet him in the sky. And it says that first the false angel of light will come, and there'll be false Christs, and the Antichrist system will rule. And what Satan is then doing in this situation is he's created a counterfeit of what God says he's going to do. The rock that strikes the foot of the statue and then grows into a big mountain, and never again will there be any pain and suffering, because that's the government then of the whole world. Where Satan claims something similar, saying that as divine beings, extraterrestrials, entities that are different from human, have superior oversight, superior ability, can move quicker, think quicker. And by biblical extrapolation, I get to that number being roughly 365,000 times more efficient in terms of functioning within time, faster and brainier, more intelligent. So you have this whole conflagration going on. So you have this new system, the false angel of light, that rises up, like the occult say, as a phoenix out of the ashes. So the earth needs to be destroyed ideologically, especially. And just before the Messiah comes, these three religions are ultimately laid waste and destroyed ideologically, because they're just leading to further and further pain and suffering. And then it says there's a short space of time where an atheistic revolution that relies on the fringe group of people that rise up, and they're very much anti these religious movements, claiming that they're causing all the pain, and they set about trying to destroy them, forgetting that the bloodiest revolution and the biggest revolution that ever took place were atheistic revolutions. So Mao Zedong, his revolution killing 66 million peasant farmers, was an atheistic revolution. And then the French Revolution, expelling all the Christians and having the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, killing 50,000 Christians in a night, kicking all the people out of their country, led to an atheistic revolution. And we know what happened then. The people rose up and they overthrew anybody that was in a position of power or wealth and beheaded them, and instituted a new atheistic state. And where they said it was liberté de raison, freedom comes from freedom through reason, so dispensing with God entirely. So this movement will rise up, but what will happen is they're severely outnumbered, and the civilian public defend themselves against it and wipe it out. So Islam is rudderless ideologically, and people are sort of lost and not knowing where this thing is going. Judaism and them is rudderless, Christianity, and then also failed atheism. So the main tenets of religion are destroyed. The ones that Satan pretends to be Christ that he presides over. So what then happens is there's this manifestation, and it has to do with the whole UFO alien revelation. There is a group of super beings with higher function and better oversight, and especially in this age of technology, that they claim to be able to govern humanity to goodness. And they claim that there is an external threat, intergalactic. Funny enough, Ronald Reagan said one day there would be a conflict involving an external force, intergalactic, that would come upon the earth, and then people would unite. So they talk about these things in advance. It's very occultic to do so. It's like God doesn't reveal anything but through his prophets. So the false system has its false prophets too. So the idea then is that these new beings manifest in great and glorious light. There'll be incredible miracles, and the people will be in absolute awe and wonder of this system. And what will happen is it'll be done in the name of peace. It's a false angel of light. It's going to be God, Satan, sitting in the place of God, pretending to be God, to be worshipped as God. So he's pretending basically to be Christ. And then what will happen is, in the name of peace, people will be ordered to fall in line, and that total solidarity will be required. If this new set of beings, these gods that claim to have seeded us on this planet, that are intervening, we need to give them this total solidarity in terms of support, otherwise they can't support us. And it starts off similar to the beginning of COVID, like similar to, if you don't wear your mask, you don't love granny, and potentially granny will die, therefore you're a granny murderer. If you don't take your jab, similarly. So it will start off, let's remember, it's fear, force, and coercion. So sweet talk at first would be like, in the name of peace, come on, look at what's happened to the world. We need to go along with this. It'll start off like that and it will progress. But the thing is, there'll be a group of people that do not love their lives unto death, that recognize that this system that claims to be light and claims to be freedom is actually a false system. And why? The reason is because we can trace this system back to every single painful and terrible thing and manipulation that has happened in this world, and all the wars and all the division that has been set up in a part of this play to reduce everything to ashes so that this false Christ could rise out. We recognize that this system is what has caused all the pain and suffering for the last 6,000 years on this planet. And those people don't agree and will not go along with it no matter what. And so this partial system of at first we'll say, please, out of love for humanity and peace, let's do this. It'll be ever increasing increments of coercion. And part of that coercion will develop to a stage where it says, okay, well, we're trying to help you here. And just as the Bible says, and demonstrated in so many instances, sometimes discipline is required. And we do it out of love. So it's a coercive method to try and get people to comply. And then it would be a case of excluding people from the marketplace. So if you don't sign our social contract and buy into all of these things that we say you should, very similar to how the pop industry works now, you cannot say this about them and that about those, and you better say this in this type of instance, you better support that narrative, music, and that's a satanic contract. That's the type of contract that speaks of people selling their souls to the devil, in order that they can have wealth and they can have all these kinds of things. So it'll be similar time contracts that those people, they'll say, you cannot, for your own good, we are going to exclude you. You can't go to work if you don't take your jab. Similar type of model. We're going to exclude you if you don't go along with us. And it'll progress from there even further, and it'll break out in violence. But the demonstration of these people will be not like the Democratic blue pill or the conservative red pill, or the split that's happened now into what they call the black pill, but it'll be a white pill methodology. We use the same methods as Christ, as demonstrated by Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Instead of raising up a rebellion and using force to overthrow a corrupt system of force, what we do is we use the court case model, that we are happy to share truth as we know it, because no one knows it perfectly, but as you sort through it, you share it, and you do it in the most gracious way possible, without the purpose of division. The message will probably divide in any event, and with zero indignance. That means you share your concept, and you leave people free entirely to decide what they think about it. If they want to hurl insults at you and defame you and discredit you and deplatform you, or whatever the case may be, you leave them free to do whatever it is they want to do. So you share truth as you understand it, in a spirit of love, totally graciously and unindignantly, in a spirit of freedom, leaving people totally free. And at the same time, there'll be need, because the systems of the world are crumbling, and we'll minister to those needs of those people. And eventually, when the violence comes on these people, there's an evidence that is given, kind of like when Christ went to the cross, choosing not to use power, but to demonstrate through evidence what people will do, and having corrupted his true system of law, in order to coerce and force and punish. And he rather let them use the law as they had misunderstood it, or misapplied it rather, in order to die, so that that evidence in the court case would give the victory. And as the people see these gracious people refusing to kowtow to this diabolical system, people will start to realize. And there's a lot of pressure, remember, so people will accept this social contract because they need food, but they're choosing the mark of the beast to serve themselves and not to serve God in the great plan. This plan is almost finished. And this is what's happening now, is the final demonstration in a court case of evidence showing that humankind can never lead to a loving and safe society through governance. And the next step is that when angels claiming to be God do the same, having superior ability and oversight, they will be shown also too not to be able to achieve that. So no created being is able to achieve this. What's needed is healing. And that's demonstrated in the Garden of Gethsemane when Jesus has been prophesied to be the king on earth, sitting in the throne of David. And Simon pulls out his short sword and he cuts off the ear. And then Jesus says to him, no, stop. If it was about that, I would put a petition or a prayer into the Father, and he would send 12 legions of 6,000 angels. And if it was about power, it would be taken care of. But it's not. Otherwise, Satan would have been killed a long time ago. The question is about the lies that Satan has told about God, and you cannot use force to prove that point. So he demonstrates the method, and he heals the ear of Malchus, and he submits himself to the cross, to the way that they chose to apply the law that they claimed was God's, to put a perfect God of perfect love on the cross. And that's the victory that is won in a court case style of method and style. So this is when that system then also finally collapses. It says the people who were deceived, they don't take that white pill model, but they turn on the system and rend it asunder. And there's violence and a great spilling. And this is when Christ comes, because there's no more need. Society is fully developed. It's a global problem. The evidence is 100% seen of what happens. And the evidence is what secures us for eternity, because we are corrupted computers, if you wish, or hardware. We are biochemically corrupted and biologically corrupted. So even the things we want to do, we can't do perfectly, because we are equivalent of like a Commodore VIC-64 from 1987. And when the healing comes, we will have these new supercomputers without any viruses, without any worms and corrupted hard drives and memory and processing. So we will be able to do the things that in our hearts and minds that we love. If you love what is good, you hate what is bad, and you refuse to justify bad things and cover them with coats that hide the things that are in the dark places, then and you trust the Lord in his model, then you love his ways, and then you would be safe to say, if he gives you new hardware, you would find it easy to do the things that you love to do, and exceedingly hard to do the things that you hate to do, where now it is in reverse, especially if there's pressure. And we are moving to a phase of ultimate pressure. So the alien agenda is real. It has to do with a false Christ. I see that the government has taken, I believe, hundreds of pastors, and they are briefing them and prepping them for this exposure, this alien disclosure. And it has obviously to do with the Christian, and they've been a Christian essence or flavor to it, and they've been asked to prep their flock for this. So many Christians are going to be deceived with regards to this, thinking that this is the Messiah. Since people don't really like to study and they trust the mainstream narrative, and the mainstream narrative is what drives the psychological operation, the brainwashing of people to observe and follow certain methods, in their approach, and it leads them to a wrong understanding. And it says that even the very elect could be deceived if it were possible. So Satan is a liar, and he is ultimately deceptive. And if he functions thousands of levels above what we do in terms of mental capacity and ability, we can be sure that the deception is totally, it must be massive. So we can know that this is all a lie. Anybody who falls for this alien manifestation, pretending to be God, an angel of light, and I think it'll be attended by great miracles, miraculous manifestations in the sky, miracles, fire called down from heaven, the Bible calls, and appearances all over the world. People will be massively convinced by it, especially since they are desperate for peace after what has happened. So economically, things are going to go downhill in a hurry. I don't believe it's a long time. I believe it's a very, very short time. just from what I can gauge from the steps that it's going, it's like a month and a year or two. This is not a long process. Look, that's my speculation. I have my reasons for it. I don't expect you to believe it, but as things unfold, you will get a sense of it. And I don't think the day and the hour is so much important to know, but that we realize what is going on so that we can put our lot on the right side of things and be very aware of not accepting the mark of the beast, which is to reject God's mode and different form of government in favor of this version of fear, force, and coercion. And to have the mark of God would be those people who share love in truth, totally unindignantly, graciously, leaving people entirely free, realizing that there is no party on either side that has a solution that can restore peace. So this is what we're heading up against, this false Christ will, when it comes down to this intergalactic war. Essentially what they'll say is there is a intergalactic um, group that is coming here to destroy the earth. And you get the picture from Revelation and the verses that say, and the earth will burn up with a fervent heat, and there'll be lightning from the east to the west. But claiming to be God, he says there's this other threat, an external threat. Meanwhile, it is Satan and his angels knowing that God is coming, and this corrupt version of everything that we have that was permitted only for a while, and it needed to happen in order to gather the evidence. Freedom requires it. I mean, if God wanted to share the gift that they have, which was love, relationship, and life, freedom is absolutely required, because relationships and love are voluntary. You cannot hold a gun against somebody's head and force them to love you. That would be akin to rape. So, and if freedom is then on the table, the rebellion is inevitable. And if God had wiped out the rebel, then it would prove the rebel right. So God entered into a court case. So all of this evidence is being stacked up, and the angels, that's what the angels are recording, and they have greater ability to do so. And I believe there will be a book of Donovan, and every person you can imagine is going to, their life is going to be recorded forever. And these will be things that we reflect on looking at the great plan of salvation and how it played out. And that serves to keep us from ever falling again. So when this power comes, obviously Satan will be overthrown, but they will use this to divide the world to excessive degrees in the name of peace, which will be a lie. And the people that will be targeted as terrorists and anti-peace are the ones that show not even the slightest tendency towards violence, and realize that truth, in the essence, in the sense of how a court case operates, is the only thing. No choosing side, no righteous indignant, no anger, no laughing face emojis, just sharing the truth as we understand it and leaving people free and ministering to the needs of people. And when they get attacked, and when this is all done, and there's enough evidence in the grand court case, Romans 3 verses 4 says about God, in the two translations I enjoy. One is King James, and it says, of God, may you be proved right when you speak, and may you be proved right when you are judged. May you win when you are judged. And then the NLT version, I think, says, may you be proved right when you speak, and may you win your case when you take it into court. God has put himself on trial. The judgment is about him, because in the face of a liar, it's hard to see who he is. And the judgment is essentially discernment. We finally, after all of this, with the lies of the devil unraveling, get to see who God truly is. So this is vitally important, and it leaves the most beautiful picture of God, the most justifiable version of him. And he comes, and then once all that evidence is in, there's no more need for persecution. So the people that continue to strive and try and kill these white-pilled people, which is something I coined in the book, Demystifying God, a golden thread woven in the heavenly loom, that's its full title, that there's no need for them to be persecuted anymore. And then Christ comes and defends those people, and we go up to meet him. in the air, and we're with him for 1,000-year period. In this time, Satan is locked up in the abyss, which is the same name given to the earth without form and void. And it correlates with the Tohu Wabohu Hebrew, which is an empty and barren wasteland, the earth before its creation. So Satan's on a ball with rotting corpses burnt up, just empty, with no one to tempt. And then after 1,000 years, I believe it'll be like a day. There's a time dilation effect. Um, we think like angels, and we can process so much quicker when he comes back. That is when the final judgment is shown, and that judgment, I find, is the great white throne judgment. Is actually a beautiful thing. God manifests in glory, the same fires of love and truth which the righteous love to living, according to Isaiah, is the same fire that the wicked hate because it searches them so. And they choose, or they meet their end, but it's not God indignantly striking out and angry. It happens in a method that is still congruent with love. God doesn't depart from love, not in the slightest, even in dispensing with the wicked. And the wages of sin then is death, and the gift of God is eternal life. So I think it's an amazing thing. In summary, we're going to go through a very tough time, spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally, morally, and will be brought to ashes, and this false phoenix will rise up out of the ashes, claiming to be Christ. Many will fall for the false Christ. They will call for solidarity and that they're there for our own good. Look at what humanity has done. They have superior powers, being gods and having created us. They can help us, and they're going to protect us against an external threat. That solidarity is required. So this is what we're going to see happening, and this is a part of that new externalization of these UFO files. And many of these people that are talking in the Senate and have had these Pentagon meetings, that have spoken out, say these beings are not aliens, they are demons. This is in their own words. They've cautioned against it, and I think many will fall for it. So I'm putting this out there in the hope that before these documents get released, which is now in an hour or two. I'm not sure exactly what time, but that there's just some record of it, so people can see that there's an agenda, and perhaps it can help them. I think we're all going to work together. God's plan is a beautiful one. He finally gets revealed to be who he is, and we get to choose based on trust whether we love him or not. And those that love self more than they love him, they'll harden their hearts, and they'll take care of their own lot. And there's no need for this court case then to go on. It's closed, and everything's fixed, and we get the gift as it was intended in the very beginning, of life, eternal, perfect, and forever growing, never stopping to develop. And what an exciting journey that would be. This short period in 999 quintillion years would be equivalent to a strand of hair placed across a highway that would stretch between Cape Town and Kamchatka, eastern Russia. It's just going to be a tiny blip on the radar, and it meant that it answered all the questions about who God is and what rebellion is, that it never has to happen again. Anyway, God bless you all. I hope this does some good for you. If you and you learned from it, I'm going to start posting a little bit more. I post quite a bit, but I think you get despondent that people aren't really picking up on it often and interested. There's so much caught in entertainment that they're not digging into things, despite, I mean, what they see around them in the world. So I'm hoping this will encourage some people. There's a lot more encouragement in it. The book, I recommend highly that anybody would read this book. It's a hard read. It's a lot of pages, but it ties the whole greater plan of salvation together, from before time right to life restored for eternity, with all its themes that tie in, revealing the lies of the devil. And when you do that, you get a really, really clear picture of who God is, and you understand what's going on, and you can buy in fully. You're saying, "This is great. I'm honored to be a part of it." Anyway, I love you and leave you. Be blessed, and we'll share some more with you soon.